Welcome to the Athletes in Motion podcast, from race to recovery, with your hosts, Tom Riegel and Kenny Bailey.
Hey, Kenny, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Tom. How are you?
We're doing fantastic. We have a great guest today, as we always have great guests for some reason. We're doing really well with that. But this show's got Ian Murray, Coach Ian Murray, who is got quite a list on his resume. It's a USAT Level 3 coach. You got USA Cycling Level 2, ITU Level 2. Ian, am I getting this all right?
Those are. There's a lot of numbers in there.
There's a lot on here. Yeah, it's all going.
Kind of a badass is basically this.
Yeah, kind of. There's a huge list on here. What I didn't see on your resume though was probably one of the most prolific things, which I think you need to update. Was you were the very first coach that I hired way back when to coach me, and got me started down this path, and kind of led me towards the coaching thing, which you probably didn't know that. But anyway, so
I'm calling my web editor now to make exactly. The CV.
Make sure you have that on there. Yeah. And also
famous podcast host, Tom Riegel.
Right. And produced one of the best is it still available? The triathlon training series. Can we still get copies of that? There was a 6 DVD set. It was everything a beginner wanted to know about triathlon. It was probably one of the best things out there.
I still have 2 cases. So if there are 24 people left in the world who own a DVD player, reach out. I'll send you one. I'll send you one for free, honestly.
We need to get the streaming on it. So that's the rough background on Ian. But Ian, tell us a little bit about yourself. You grew up in Aspen. You were a skier. You said that's too cold. I want to race year round. What was it that made you jump sports?
Yeah, I was born in Detroit, but my folks got divorced when I was really young, 3, and my mom had visited Aspen. She is still a huge spirit, and there was no way Southeastern Michigan was going to keep her. She went to Aspen and then went on to do amazing things. She led treks to Nepal and
wow.
She was an equestrian, and I mean, she's just done some amazing stuff. But she dragged me. At age 3, you don't know what you're getting into, but in hindsight, of course, growing up in Aspen, Colorado is quite an experience, and I'm very grateful to have done that. But at age 21, I burn out so spectacularly. I had lived in a ski town for all those years. I had coached skiing, taught skiing from age 15 on. I had won a couple of world championships in something called demonstration skiing, which is kind of like a less athletic synchronized swimming, let's say. It's a judged event, and it took me a lot of places. I skied in Austria, I skied in Japan, I skied on the glacier at Mount Hood in the summer, and it was a lot. And by the time I was in my early 20s, I was done in a very big way. And a buddy of mine who was on my ski team lived here in Los Angeles and said, "Look, you're clearly finished in this sport. Why don't you come out to LA, help my family run this gym, this athletic center there, and I think you'd really like it." And I thought, there's no way I'm going to like LA. I'll despise it. I won't survive. But I had nothing else to really go on. So I came out here, and for about 4 years, I was pretty rudderless. I was still an athlete, but I didn't have purpose. Yeah. And I found triathlon and started racing for myself personally, and was really enjoying the challenge and the balance and just the whole thing of it. Just the ability to drag your own flesh across all the surfaces on the planet at speed was something that interested me.
Yeah.
And
I've never heard it approached that way. Drag your flesh across.
I mean,
it's kind of true.
We've got land and sea, and it doesn't matter if it's rugged and you're running, or smooth and you're riding, or wet and you're swimming. It's just such a beautiful way to do it. And athletes were coming to me and saying, "Hey, I saw your results. How'd you do that? That looked really good. You seem to be coming along quickly, et cetera, et cetera." And I realized just from those sort of impromptu conversations that I really missed working with athletes like I did when I was skiing. And so in 1990, maybe 7, I mean, it was for in terms of USAT coaching education standards, it was very early. I went to maybe the second USAT coaching certification meeting. It was at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs at the time. And I'm going to use the term we here because I was involved with coaching education for a decade with USAT, and I really feel like I was part of that. Mm-hmm. At the time, we had no idea what we're doing. We threw everything at the level 1. We had no other levels, and it was a 5-day deal, and it was a thing. And so we really powered through that. And then a couple of years later, I went to meet a man that I really had liked and admired named Dan Enfield, who was teaching a bike fit certification. And then I went back for my level 2 at USAT. And then I started working with some professionals, and that sort of guided me into my level 3 at USAT. And then I started leading coaching education at USAT and got more involved in bike fitting, and then worked with Terry Laughlin at Total Immersion for quite some time. And all this time, by the way, for many years, I had other jobs. I was managing an environmental building consulting office for a guy who was brilliant, and then I managed a restaurant at night locally here in Topanga, near Malibu, California, near my home. And I just eventually, the work kept coming as a triathlon coach, and finally I just went full time. And now here you and I are, Kenny, Tom. I'm so glad to be on the show. Thank you for having me. And I'm over 2 decades into coaching triathlon full time.
Wow.
Nice. I really enjoy the work. So I think about this sometime because, when I was, say, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years into a skiing career, I was fried. And here I am 23 years into a triathlon coaching career, and I can't see the horizon. I mean, I'm so stoked every day awesome. I get up, and I'm thrilled with that. So it's a great career, and it's a weird career, but it's a great career.
Yeah. And you found that balance with the sport and the love of actually teaching people. So
I do have to say this, and I think for sure, Tom, you can relate to this. I think life would be simpler for me if my hobby were not triathlon. For instance, if I was a triathlon coach, that was my job, and my hobby, like I was into bowling, that would make things a lot easier because you can separate stuff.
Yeah.
And also we have a lot of triathlon coaches who have zero coaching education, specific education to coaching, but they have 5 world championship titles to their name. And so it can be an interesting situation to be in this sport in terms of liking to race as I'm 53 now, so I still race 50 to 55 and dig it, 50 to 54 and dig it. But I coach, and those things sometimes get conflicted and intermingled in an odd way.
Yeah.
So I'm 53 too. So I'll be in your same age group. That's not what I wanted to hear. So
I just aged up. I'm in the 55 to 59 group now. So thank goodness I'm not. When Ian aged in, I was so depressed.
There you go. You get out as quickly as possible. So during those Haiti days in LA really exploded that tri scene, it seems like, right? You were sort of in an epicenter at the beginning of a fundamental movement that really started ramping, right? You're talking, kind of the giants of triathlon. You just rattle off a couple of names, right? So did you know at the time you were in that sort of or did you kind of look back later going, wow, this is a place where we really started something? I
didn't feel it at the time, but Kenny, you're so right. I mean, it was unreal here in 99, 2000, all the way up to say the market crash, which is say 2008. It was just an outrageous time. Mm-hmm. We had the first Olympics for triathlon going on in Sydney in 2000. And a race started here called the LA Triathlon that had the largest pro purse in the sport that year.
Wow.
And the LA Tri Club was in its infancy, maybe a year old. I'm the head coach and one of the founders of that program. And you could not do anything wrong. Like whatever you want to do in triathlon, your business just grew. And it looked so promising. Oh my God, it was fabulous. And of course, 2008, when the market dipped, we felt it in triathlon. There's no doubt about it. But those people who were still inspired by the sport, were passionate about the sport, hung on. And when we came out the other side, it was almost as if the sport, especially here in LA, had a purity to it afterwards, because it was only the people that were completely dedicated were still in it.
Yeah.
Well, and it's terrible to think that you had to go through that, but in some respects, right, you kind of wean out those those people that are there for the fun of it, not necessarily being, like you said, being dedicated to the sport. And if you can survive that and be dedicated through that, those are the people you want to continue to talk to and hang on to.
Yeah, I try and take a 5,000 foot view of that whole thing. We still live in the United States. There's an obesity epidemic here. We deal with diabetes here. There are health issues attached to being sedentary and not eating well. And I think the sport of triathlon is something that can really lift people out of that hole. So I don't care if it's Johnny-come-latelys who are just bringing folks into sport for a one-off. All of that still helps our nation, our humanity, and I'm all for that.
There's it's an interesting, because you have a 20-year view of this kind of whole thing, right? You probably, people that really wanted to do triathlon, people like you that were former skiers, you probably had former athletes, you had a lot of people that were looking for that next sort of thrill, that next drug, right? I mean, triathlon by definition, you have type A personality people that can't seem to let go. Big shock. And all three of us are doing it. So,
it's all three. You just described all three of us, right?
Exactly.
There's a lot of that right here. Right?
But clearly over the 20 years, it moved into, and triathlon was very much, it needs to grow the sport beyond just hardcore athletes, right? As you see that progression, how have you seen over those couple of decades? There's a lot of questions wrapped in this one, right? You've got different types of people. Did you want to, or need to, I guess, or both, be able to change sort of how the coaching approach and how they approach you get to more people? I know, for example, the swim portion of triathlons are Ironman struggles with that quite a bit, right? Because they know that's the least favorite, I guess. I'm an adult onset swimmer, so it's difficult for me. How did that view over time? Did you embrace it? I mean, there's some hardcore people that hate the fact that, let's keep it pure. Let's keep it like it intended to be. People are saying we need to kind of move into allowing sort of a broader range. Where do you fit in with that? Or how did you see that?
That's a good question. I can say this. And again, this is the problem of commingling the fact that this is my business, this is my career, and this is what I like to do. So let me tell you, for my career.
Yeah.
I love the fact that we have a lot to offer. And I love that Ironman is out there still drawing people in. There's still people coming to our sport who don't really know what triathlon is. They know what Ironman is.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm fine with it. And I'm fine with it. We're having this conversation, the three of us, and what 5 days hence is Oceanside, Ironman 70.3 Oceanside.
Yeah.
And there are people walking around saying they're doing Ironman, which for the three of us who've been in the sport for a while, that signifies a distance. These people aren't doing an Ironman, they're doing a half.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Bring that on. And I want to go a step further with Oceanside, because now let's bring it around to your swim question. Oceanside has a map on their site right now. I have many athletes going to this race, so I'm tuned into it. And it's right down the street, essentially.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it has a map for their swim, which starts, wait for it, through the surf.
Oh my.
Okay, now they've drawn that map many times in the past.
Hasn't changed.
And then when you show up and it's a little bumpier than a koi pond, whoa, we're not going to the surf anymore. Come on, everybody over here to the boat ramp, because now we're going to swim in the marina where it's protected. So in terms of my business, I love that Ironman is still on it. I love that people are stoked about it. I love that there's opportunities for draft legal and there's people coming there. I love that we have this youth talent ID, junior development, U23, elite. I love that pathway to the Olympics. I love everything about the Olympic pathway, the draft legal thing. I love the fact that guys our age can go and race draft legal a couple times a year. I don't know if you took note of it, but we have in the national championship festival that they're calling it now, we have a gravel national championship, a gravel triathlon. Awesome.
Yes.
So thrilled. So there are so many avenues for people to stay satisfied, and I want everybody to come in. I have athletes that have zero desire to do an Olympic. They just want to keep winning sprints. They want to be the fastest triathlete they can be with 5K off the bike. I'm loving that. I have people, of course, because this is the traditional, who come in and they're like, hey, I'm a beginner, sprints this year, Olympic the next, then I want to do a half, then I'm going to do iron. Fine. 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 I'm open to all that for business. In terms of myself, I want it weirder. For me, I want it to be weirder. By the way, I'm probably going to be coughing through this and I'm going to get a little lost mentally, because Last Friday at 8 a.m., I started a bike packing race called the Stagecoach 400, and I didn't finish until Sunday at 6 p.m. I slept 5 hours in 3 days.
Outstanding.
I rode 380 miles was the course this year with 27,000 feet of gain. My body, I mean, I'm so beaten up, and and I'm still not sleeping. I want it as weird as I can get it. I want it self-supported. I want to have to navigate. I don't want anybody holding my hand or handing me cups. I just want to go. So as we come into things in this multi-sport world, this endurance world where swim run events where there's no paper cups on the whole course, you're just carrying a little flask. I mean, I'm crazy for that personally. And so what's nice is still when somebody comes to me and says, hey, listen, I'm really attracted to Ironman. I want to finish an Ironman. I want to get a tattoo and then I'm done. I still support that 100% because it's good for them.
Yeah.
So it's nice to watch the curve. It's nice to watch it. And I want to say something else too, because you mentioned being an adult onset swimmer. I love that phrase. I didn't learn to swim until I was 26. And that was a big deal for me. It was the thing that kept me from triathlon. And when I finally made the commitment and really immersed for 3 years in not only learning to swim myself, but learning several different philosophies on how to teach adults to swim freestyle. And by the way, in all modesty, I'm going to say this. I am a great adult freestyle, efficient, fast swim instructor. But keep in mind how narrow that is. I don't teach kids. I don't teach breast. I don't teach back. I don't teach fly. I don't teach blocks. I don't teach turns. It's so narrow, and I'm great at that incredibly narrow sliver of a definition. And I didn't learn to swim until late, and I've become a really good swimmer. I have a 55-minute Ironman PR.
Nice.
I've swam the Maui Channel solo 10 miles.
Nice.
I've done some big things in the water now as an adult, which I would never have done because I didn't like to put my face in the water. I had water fear. And now to come that way. And also I only swim twice a week. And when I show up at a local race like the Malibu Triathlon, I'm second or third out of the water in my age group all the time because swimming is such a technique-minded sport. Yeah. If you can get the technique down, your fitness doesn't have to be huge and you can still be right up there in triathlon, right up front.
Yeah. And that's the crazy part about that. It's like, I didn't want to play golf because it was just getting too technical. So what I do, I go to try to swim, which is the most idiotic thing.
It's even more technical.
It's like, let's just add the level of like, I don't know, breathing, right? At least in golf, you can inhale if you do it right. So,
well, teaching skiing, and I went through all the levels of certification in Professional Ski Instructors of America, and an alpine parallel ski turn is a very complicated thing, very complicated, like a freestyle stroke. Yeah. And PSIA, I'm 15 years old going through my level 1 at PSIA. And basically I saw the logic of it, which is, hey, we're going to take this super technical thing and we're going to break it down into a gliding wedge. Like that's where we're going to start. And then we're going to learn to guide that gliding wedge. And then we're going to guide that gliding wedge and bring the skis parallel to finish, and then bring them into a wedge again and guide that turn and then bring them parallel. And then that goes to a stem Christie. And then eventually you get to a parallel turn. Well, in freestyle swimming, I saw the exact same thing. And Terry Laughlin's no longer with us, but that guy loved people, loved teaching. Like it doesn't matter. He could have taught he could have taught how to type, and he would have been an amazing typing teacher. He could have taught anything and he would have been amazing. He just loved people, loved teaching. And it just so happened that swim was his thing. And I totally get why high performance swim people look upon total immersion with disdain. I totally get it. But I also get why duathletes who are incredibly fit go to one weekend workshop of total immersion and come out the other side thinking, well, Jesus Christ is down here and Terry Laughlin is up here.
Right,
and that's a nice place. So I totally get it. But Terry really found a way to break down the freestyle swim stroke into digestible pieces and teach it to people in 2 days. And, that was an amazing thing for them. And
it's not painful and all that good stuff. Right? Your shoulders aren't blowing up.
People come through a 2-day workshop, total immersion workshop, which I worked with Stu and taught with him on some. I was totally blown away on people that could barely paddle, just barely keeping from drowning type of thing. And they're coming out here with a pretty decent freestyle stroke after 2 days. And I was just kind of like, That
You're
just,
blown
that was,
away by that.
that was incredible.
My business, it's so funny because triathlon coaching is incredibly complicated. I mean, if you think about it, it's you've got sure swim, you've got bike, you've got run, you've got strength.
Yep.
You've got nutrition, you've got psychology, I mean, there are so many aspects to it. And there are single sport coaches, there are running coaches that are struggling to complete their package. And yet we have 2 other sports. So it's very interesting for me now to just finally own the fact that there are some things that I'm very, very, very good at. And there's some things that I'm not that good at. And frankly, I would rather have an athlete go see somebody who is super good at that thing than have to deal with my mediocrity or whatever. I mean, it's fun. So there's a pool, a 25-yard pool that's a block and a half from my house. And I teach 4, 5, 6 lessons a week there and have for years. And I think what happens when you get into that kind of a rhythm, you figure out the fastest ways to get an adult to swim well. And so I'm not really interested in a swim coach who can teach somebody to swim freestyle. I mean, I think anybody can teach somebody to swim freestyle. What I want you to do is teach them to swim freestyle in what? 3 weeks, 3 hours, 30 minutes? Like, how fast can you do it? Because that's really what somebody's interested in.
Well, and I think there's a confidence level too, to your point, right? You can teach in a pool, which is great, and you feel good, but guess what? You know, you get out in the real water, there's not a whole lot of mid to long distance pool triathlons, right? So guess what? You have elements, you have waves, you have salt, you have, critters. You know, you go to the Northeast, you're going to get stung in the face. Just get ready for it. You know, fun, right?
There's a lot of anxiety that comes from water.
Exactly.
Yep.
So as a coach, I think you brought up to the point, you get these people that come in and it's like, this is what I'm going to do. Here's my 3-year plan, right? I'm going to do sprint, I'm going to do Olympic, and then I'm going to do a half, and then I'm going to do a full, right? And then you have people that are coming in going, okay, I think a little bit more seasoned, if you will, or they just kind of know what they like and they're okay with that. Describe to me sort of a little bit more detail about sort of those people that you see coming to you and how's that changed over time? And then probably the follow-on question is there people you just like, look, maybe this isn't working for us?
Well, okay, hold on. Let's talk about that because that's interesting. I still keep a stable of a dozen athletes. That's my max. That's how many I coach. It's fine. I'm good with it. I just did a consult last night with a new athlete. She's a surgeon. She's in her mid 30s and she's like us. She's totally type A. She's got a real mission. And
discretionary income type A.
And she's single. She has no children. I mean, she's the perfect athlete, and she's she's qualified for 70.3 worlds, and she has real purpose in that mission. And she's all in, right? She's like, bike fit's important to me, swim efficiency is important to me. Like, she's everything you'd want somebody to be. And when you get an athlete like that, it's just so easy to just relax into it and say, okay, this athlete's philosophy, goals, desire, direction aligns perfectly with my philosophy, goals, desire, direction. And it's going to be such a piece of cake to work with this person. It's no problem. Okay. Also, the LA Tri Club, after 22 years of existence, offers 2 membership levels now. We just launched this on January 1st of this year. We have a performance membership now, where when an athlete joins that at $99 a month, I'm the coach and I'm writing programs for all the people that come on board.
Wow.
And
what number is that?
I'm sorry, say again.
Is that a lot of people?
Well,
it sounds like
I want it to get to a lot of people.
Okay, great.
Right now it's 23. I'd like it to get by mid-July. I'd like it to be at 40, and we may very well. But there's such disparity there. You know, we have 2 athletes that are coming off of injuries. One is an Achilles tear, and the other one is back surgery. And they're doing a 1-minute run by 1-minute walk 5 times through for 10 minutes. Like, that's their starting workout. And I've got other people that are borderline elite age group who are trying to qualify for big stuff. And to that end, you still have to work it. And to be honest, the only way this is possible is through software now that kind of helps automate some of the stuff. So we're using today's plan platform, and it makes it all possible, and it's great. And of course, I'm a Luddite, so it took me 9 months to learn how to use. It would take somebody else 9 days, but I mean, that's fine. And so the people who are coming in still run the gamut. They're still all different kinds, and it's just fine for me. Look, this is true for all service industry. If the three of us were into restaurants, okay, and we owned a restaurant, you know, Tom, your place might be a vegan, no animal products at all. Mine might be like Lowry's, where we actually kill the cow right there at the table. And Kenny, you might be some high-end French thing that does 16 courses. It doesn't matter what we do. Still, when somebody comes in and sits down and they you know, they're allergic to nuts or they don't want any dairy, or we're still going to accommodate. In triathlon business, we're coaching. We want to provide a service. I'm going to accommodate it. Now, what's cool is we can to a point, the customer's always right, and we're going to deliver the service. And then what's great is you get to a place where you're like, I know my borderline. Yeah. I know when I do a consultation, you know, for years when I did a consultation, it was like, please let this athlete work with me. Please let this athlete work. And now it's like, let me see if I want to work with this athlete.
Yeah.
Because I can tell early on if their values just don't align with mine, then I'm like, you know what? I think you're going to be great in this sport, but I think there's a better match for you somewhere else. Like, you can tell that now. And I'm grateful to say no sometimes, because in this business and in a lot of businesses, 10% of your athletes will eat up 90% of your time. And if you can identify those people early on and move them off, you'll provide better service for your other customers. So that's simple. You know.
Is there a number? I mean, what's I know it kind of varies by coach, but, and I know in my experience in hiring coaches, you can pay a little bit and just sort of get the software program, and they'll just make sure to double check the software program. You pay a little more, and then you get a little bit more personal attention. You pay a lot more, and then, you know, they tuck you in at night and make sure your alarm is set, right? So for you guys, because both of you are coaches, where's a comfortable number when it comes to that mix? And I guess the follow-on question to that is, as someone like me looking for a coach, when should I get nervous that this person is just basically doing it to get, you know, massive amounts of people?
Yeah. Wow. What a great question. I think about this a lot. Here are the two ends of the spectrum. There are free training programs on the internet right now that are 10 weeks to an Olympic, or 16 weeks to an Ironman, or whatever. Okay. So that's the bottom. Actually, no, that's not fair. The bottom is the athlete doesn't get any program.
Yeah.
And they're just waking up going, a little stiff today. I think I'll go for a bike ride. Oh, flat tire. I guess I'll run. You know, just no guidance. No guidance. Yeah. That's the worst. So in terms of having a coach or a program or some sort of an involvement, the free training program is the worst, because some of those are not written for a course. Like, you may be doing a super hilly half Ironman, and this is a flat training program. That's a problem. There's also no acknowledgement of where the athlete's starting. Like, has the athlete been running for 5 years and very competent, but doesn't know how to swim? Like, there's no acknowledgement of strengths and weaknesses in this thing. Okay, the other end of the spectrum, and we're going extreme here, is the squad environment. You know, you move into a camp, like a campus. And there's a pool and a track right there. And there's a chef over here in the commissary. Yeah. And then you live in these rooms, and there's the massage room and the strength room. And you wake up every morning and the coach is there going, hey, let's all go to the pool together. I'm going to be there watching you swim. Let's all go to the track.
Honey, get my checkbook.
I mean, that's the dreamiest. And that's so rare. That's really left for probably 6 or 8 squads around the world that are preparing for the Olympics, right? Yeah. Okay. So now you have everything between. And I really think that the scale shifts with the personalization of the program and the amount of contact. That's what it is. So if you want the program designed just for you, you're going to pay more. And if you want to be able to call that coach, say between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., 6 days a week, that you're going to pay more. Yeah. And so you try and find that balance point where there's some people, I mean, I charge $249. I probably should be charging $299. I'm too lazy to up my rate right now.
I got to change the website.
Exactly. I need to do that. I just haven't. And for some people, they're like, $249. I'm not paying that for a coach. I want to find something else. Well, at the LA Triathlon Performance Plan, it's $99. And some people look at that and go, yeah, I can do that. So then what we do is we have a Zoom call with the whole team on Monday nights. Every Monday night, everybody gets on and we just chat and catch up. And Carla Weir, my assistant coach, and I just start out with something like a theme like this Monday, we talked about intervals and like the purpose of intervals and how they work and why they're important. And then I think the week prior to that, I did something about psychology, just phrases and keywords and mantras that can keep you in a good headspace while you go. And so we just start with a little like 7-minute topic, and then we open it up to questions. And it works great. Not everybody will talk in front of others about their issues, understandably. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then we have office hours through the week where somebody can call and schedule a 15-minute call and get on and say, listen, I've got this toe fungus. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And then you talk about the personal stuff. It's fine. And it just works out. And then the program, this is the thing about the software that I'm loving. I can write, 4 or 5 weeks of a training program for everybody all at once. Mm-hmm. And then the customization begins after that. So the athletes can take stuff and say, wait a minute, I swim on Wednesday, Friday, not Tuesday, Thursday. So let me drag and drop over here. And then I like to ride with my friends on this group that way. So I drop it there. And then I can get on a 10-minute call or 15-minute call with an athlete who says, look, yeah, this Olympics there, but then I'm doing an Ironman. So I need to up my ride mileage, and I can go in and tweak all 4 of the long rides and bring that up. And so you start with something en masse, and then you just tweak it enough to make it perfect. Now you've got a balance of personalization in the training program, connectivity with the coach to get your questions answered, and it works. And I got to tell you, when you compare that to, and I'll name them right now, I'm not going to be shy about this, these automated programs. There's something out of Texas called TriDot, which uses artificial intelligence and an algorithm of past training programs off of digital devices that helps write programs. Yeah. Okay. Then there's Peakers.ai, which 3 or 4 years ago, a couple of German guys were in Santa Monica. They said they had $1.5 million in first round funding or whatever, and then they were going to build this thing. They sold it recently to a local coach. I don't know what's going on with that, but the theory was that this artificial intelligence was creating training programs for people. There's another one I just got from Scott Shinspan, the former director of high performance at USAT, who now works for the US Olympic Committee. And he's got something called, I've forgotten the name now, but HumanGo.ai, another artificial intelligence driven training program. And by the way, this stuff isn't new. You guys might remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Mark Allen coaching engine, right? There was a software guy in San Diego who basically figured out this way to automate training program design and then attached Mark Allen's name. It didn't last long. They had a business divorce, but the theory has always been out there. How can I write more programs for more athletes? And in my mind, there's nothing about that benefits the athlete. It just benefits the coach. Yeah. Because what happens is if you say, hey, I'm coaching along here at $300 a month and it's great. If I could have 30 athletes, man, that would be amazing. If I could have 90 athletes, that would be incredible. But how am I going to do that? There's not enough time in the day. So let's figure out how to automate this whole thing. And the reality is that doesn't serve the athlete.
No.
Well, not only that, but
as we get and talk more and more about mental stress and anxiety and things that are going on, and we're actually more focused on mental health. Stress is stress. Your body doesn't know training stress versus work stress versus home stress. And that's where I think, like, being a coach, that's where I don't want to deal with an athlete that just wants a training plan, because you can find 100 of those, right? I take on less athletes because I'm going to over personalize the damn thing, right? I'm going to be way too much involved in knowing what's going on, so we can make those adaptations as we go along. Because
Tom, you are so right. I think on a cellular level, the body doesn't know the difference between a really hard interval run and an argument with a family member. I just don't think it does. And so to have fewer athletes, but provide a better service for that smaller group, I mean, that's something of quality that you really want to deliver on. I agree.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, you can automate. Like the interesting thing about sort of the fitness industry, right, is we thought if we strap a watch on somebody, tell them how many times they make a step, that they're going to automatically just become more fit. And at first it seemed like it was working, right? Got to get my steps in. But you find out humans are social in nature, and that you're more beholden to Kathy, who you are going to meet at 9 o'clock for your walk on Saturday morning, than you are your watch. And I think from a coaching standpoint to your guys, so at least from my perspective, I'm not, I want to look for a coach that's empathetic and understands and wants to help me get through, but also kind of understands that I'm kind of a crazy individual. My life is all over the place, but you're almost looking for a psychologist, not somebody that knows how to write 8 miles versus 10 miles. Like you said, I can do that on a program. What I'm looking for is somebody that can learn, adapt, and understand me, and then figure out, okay, based off of what are the trigger things that work for you. And I'll tell you specifically, like Tom and I were in the lake last year, and I was getting ready for Ironman California, and I was just weak and tired. And I'm like, when we're heading back, and I'm like, okay, I don't know. And he looks at me, he goes, "Hey man, you're a fucking Ironman." I'm like, God, I am. And then, finish it. Right. And it's just, that's all I needed. Right. I didn't need the psychology of the stroke or the swim, or maybe you need to, try to plane better. And, he always does a patient lead hand. If I hear patient lead hand one more time, it's just, it's just like, I just needed to be like, hey dude, you do this, go. And then it was like, okay. And then I went, right. And then those are the things you look for in a coach, right?
That's so funny. How many times have we as coaches had the conversation where you spend weeks and weeks and weeks down in the minutia with somebody, and they're like, hey man, this is really hard. I can't believe how tired I am. I'm like, whoa, dude. You want to do an Ironman. If Ironman were easy, nobody would respect it. So just harden up. Like, if you want to do this, get ready.
But there's some people that respond to that. And I think the challenge for coaches is trying to figure out what are those triggers that you can say that versus those times you can't. So
see, now, Kenny, you're talking about psychology, and I got to tell you something. I think psychology is one of the biggest factors in what we do in this sport, because in any endurance sport, you have to have the mindset to keep moving forward even when you're hurting. Okay. And also, it's probably one of the least explored area. And even if you did something on just a surface level of figuring out is someone motivated intrinsically or extrinsically, like just some basics, just to figure out how to tap into their desire, I think that would be a great step forward.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. There's sort of, if you were to Pareto out sort of those things that, and maybe those hidden things that people just don't understand. Like,
hang on, did you just say Pareto out?
I did, because
I don't know what that means.
I used to be a corporate guy, so you have to take the highest problem first and go down the least problem.
Okay.
So you create a Pareto. I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I love podcast.
I could PowerPoint the hell out of that if you'd like. So I will make a PowerPoint to beat the band. So if you look at sort of like, you got the 3 disciplines on actually doing the disciplines, those things that I don't think we talk about a whole lot are like nutrition's a big deal. Sports psychology is a big deal. So when you start looking at sort of the priority of how you coach people, obviously mechanics and getting these people to be efficient is probably one thing, but how do you rate sort of sports psychology and the nutrition part along with the physical part as well?
For me, and I'm coming back to this athlete who I just talked to last night, because we're going to meet this weekend, and I'm going to see her swim. We're going to do an hour in the pool. I'm going to watch her swim. I'm going to watch her mechanics, and I'm going to put her through a marker set. I can tell you right now, it's going to be 10 ones on 140. Mm-hmm. So she's going to swim 10 100-yard lengths on the time standard of a minute 40. Mm-hmm. And while I'm sure she's going to make it, she might blow it. Mm-hmm. Like at number 7, she might come in 142. And if fine, that's still a good test, because, my job after that is to write a training program that suits where she is, that has technical focus points that are appropriate. I'm not just going to grab at fun stuff like, hey, I saw a video on YouTube of an athlete swimming with a glass of milk on their forehead, and so I'm going to have you do that. No. There's going to be actual reasons. Yeah, that was cool. So then I'm developing a training program that has appropriate frequency, appropriate duration, appropriate intensity, and the technical fixes that she needs. Like, if you're doing that, I mean, my God, I think you're hitting on 99% of what needs. So then I'm going to watch her run, and she's going to have a 3-hour visit here with me. I'm going to watch her run for maybe 25 minutes locally here on a flat street. And we're going to talk. We're probably going to find 3 focus points. And I can guess they could be posture. They could be stride length. They could be the arm swing. It could be heel height. It could be knee drive. It could be whatever these things are. Okay. And again, afterwards, I'll be able to say, all right, I'm going to want you to run X number of times a week. So I've got frequency, I've got duration, I've got intensity, and now I've got these focus points from being able to see her run. Okay. Then we're going to come into, my camera right now is in my garage. My garage has custom kitchen cabinetry. It is built out to be my office, my bike fit studio, my testing facility. And I'm going to put her on the trainer on her bike. Now she's already been fit by Jim Manton, who's a great bike fitter. He's very near to me here. He's a great bike fitter. He's a great guy. So I expect her fit to be almost perfect. But she says she has some shoulder discomfort in the front of her delt. Cool. We're going to try and solve that with probably aerobar tilt or wider pads or something. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find it. I'm going to watch her pedal. I'm going to see what her cadence is like. I'm going to see how she points her ankle, etc. And then from that and a consult, I'm going to know how often we're going to bike ride with frequency, the duration of those rides, the intensity, and now I'm going to have some technical aspects for her. So once you have those, and those are the top priorities. I mean, you got to have all of those in Swim, Bike, Run to start. Otherwise, you can't write the program. Then I'm just going to let it roll out. And during the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk often, and I'm going to start to get a sense from her. Is her nutrition working? Like I already know because of her size and her body weight. We had a consultation on the phone, and I asked her some very basic questions. Age, height, body weight. How do you like the way you look in the mirror? And from that, I'm starting to get a sense of her overall relationship with nutrition, not just how she eats, but how she feels about the way she eats.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And then we can, over the next 2 weeks, we can start to look at, hey, we had that 3-hour bike ride. You know, how did you feel? We had that little brick where you ran off the bike. Did you have good energy? What did you drink? What did you eat? Because now I'm slowly pulling out the details of how she's dealing with training nutrition, which is going to be the same as racing nutrition. And we can start talking about that. But I'm also going to ask about her sleep habits at that point in time. You know, we're really going to get into the details. And then those conversations will start to reveal what her psychology is about, what she prioritizes, what matters to her. And from that, I can start to get a feel for it. And I'll drop in other little questions to reveal more of that. Yeah. I'm not as good as that as I need to be. I need to keep improving my education as a coach to improve those aspects, but I have some little tricks now that make it work.
Good.
Yeah. I think finding the relationship with food, I think that is key for all athletes, especially female athletes, but all athletes. For that has been kind of eye-opening for me. Once I started looking at it as relationship, how you deal with food, what your relationship is it a reward? Is it a punishment? Is it a whatever it is? That's been eye-opening. And that's certainly something that we all as coaches need to spend a lot more time diving into, I think.
No doubt.
So there's it's funny to me because I go to two different websites. I go to, if I just want to watch people get beat up all the time, I go to Slow Twitch and just watch that army beat the crap out of people. And then there's one that's for beginners. It's called Pathetic Triathletes. It's on Facebook.
I'm aware of both of those. In fact,
so you go to Pathetic
Slow Twitch, but we'll come back to that in a second. Yeah.
So it's fun watching Pathetics because that's generally people that are just now getting into it. They're newbies and they're excited about doing it and they're scared and everyone has the whole thing. And, I posted a couple things on Pathetic about how pathetic am I that we do this kind of stuff. We laugh at ourselves. That's the whole point. But one of the almost universal things is, should I get a road bike? Should I get a tri bike? What kind should I get? Is it carbon? Is everything else? And I try, and I'm hoping you guys will smile. My universal answer is always be, don't care what you get, just go get it fit. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how nice it is, how pretty it is. If you don't like riding it, it doesn't matter. So there, I teed up a softball for you.
Oh my God.
Talk about.
That is such a great answer. Listen, I teach Bike Fit School both for Dan Enfield's Fist School and for Cannondale's Guru Academy. And Bike Fit's a really important thing to me. And I'd like to just spend a couple minutes on this. So the first is this. The absolute best way to go about this is to go to a bike fitter before you purchase your bike. Get on their dynamic fit bike. This is a device that allows you to keep pedaling, and the fitter can move the saddle up and down, back and forth, handlebars up and down, back and forth while you're pedaling. And it allows the fit to be driven not just by the fitter who's looking at your body angles and saying, yeah, we're moving towards a better place. But then as it gets close to perfect, the fitter can basically become an optometrist and say, what do you like better, A or B?
Yeah.
And the end result is
this one.
Yes.
This one.
Higher, lower. And it's such a fabulous way to finalize and perfect the fit. And when the athlete gets off, this is a kind of a mind blower, but when the athlete gets off the dynamic fit bike after the process, the bike fitter can prescribe not just the size bike. Hey, you need a 56 centimeter road bike, but you need a 56 centimeter road bike with a 100 millimeter stem that's in a -6 degree pitch with 15 millimeters of spacer underneath it and a 70-degree bar curve. And the athlete doesn't have to understand what that means. I mean, I'll explain it to them because I want them to know, but they don't have to know. Yeah. All you know is this: you're buying a bike that is going to fit you, not just fit you, but become an extension of your body.
Exactly.
And that's what you want to have happen. And nowadays, by the way, more important than ever, because so many bikes have hydraulic disc brakes, and you do not want to change a stem length and have to pull out the hydraulic disc brake lines, cut them, and re-bleed. Yeah. You don't want to have to do that. So many bikes today have internal cable routing. You do not want to have to pull the spinal cord out of the stem and out of the frame of the bike that's all hidden in, change the stem length, and then reroute all that stuff. Because if we have, and I'm going to use a term of art here. If we have a mortal bike, okay, this is a bike with a regular old stem on it. Yep. And I've got drawers here. Tom's got drawers of stems. We've got stems that are 60 millimeters long or 140 millimeters long. We got stems that point straight down, point straight up, and everything in between. If we're on a mortal bike where none of the cables or hosing or anything is going through the stem, we can change that stem in 90 seconds. If you're on a super bike, so here's the other term of art. If you're on a super bike where all of those wires and hoses and everything are running internally through the stem and down into the bike, it's going to take you all day to change the stem. Yeah. And so if you're going out to buy a bike, let's just do the fit first. The whole fit is done. You'll not only know exactly what bike to buy, you'll know exactly what front end you need on it, but also you'll know all of your fit coordinates. You know, your seat height, your setback, your cockpit distance, your handlebar. Like the fit is done and you don't even own the bike yet. That's a great place to be.
So and you're comfortable, right? And you're actually going to ride the thing, right? You're not going to get knee pain. You're not going to.
That's it. You know, the primary thing about the bike is it has to be comfortable. And then what's amazing is we can stay comfortable and make power. We can stay comfortable, make power, and get out of the wind a little bit more and be faster. So those things can happen together. You just have to go with it. So I love the fact that you go on to Pathetics, the Pathetic Triathlete group on Facebook, and say, hey, listen, see a fitter first. And then it doesn't really matter because if they buy an aluminum 10-speed bike from, 2003 for $700, if they're fit to it, they will be faster than somebody else who's on a $10,000 ultra carbon disc thing.
Slammed front end.
Oh yeah. That's so uncomfortable. They can't stay in arrow. Yeah. Oh, terrible.
How many times did we take pictures of at the Malibu Tri going up and down the coast where everyone was in these beautiful super bikes sitting upright with their hands on the the elbow pads.
So what Tom's talking about is I went out on a Saturday. Saturday is the Olympic distance race at Malibu and Sunday's the classic. And I just went out and sat up on the hillside at, like 12K into this bike course. And I filmed every athlete who went by who had aero bars and was not in them.
Yes.
And this is on a flat section of a highway. And I mean, I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of athletes. And the end of the video, because some of these people are road bikes with clip-ons. And I almost say, I get it while you're not an aero. Like a road bike with clip-ons, it's very hard to get that comfortable.
Yeah. I would agree.
But some of these people are coming by with absolute high-end, $9,000 plus tri bikes with aero helmets and disc wheels and everything imaginable.
Yeah.
And they're up on the pursuit bars with their chest up in the wind. And it's because that bike is not comfortable in aero. And if it's not comfortable in aero, you might as well be on a Schwinn varsity, 5-speed from 1972. You just might as well be on that bike.
So a follow-on question. Hi. Follow-on question from the crowd. Hi, Kenny, long-time listener, first-time caller. An interesting thing also that occurs, because I used to do a lot of road bike racing, right? And then I moved to triathlon. And so my hips moved, things got, my body came different, and I'm getting older, right? So as a person that looks at people, when you fit them first, like let's say you're fitting a relatively new person, they're 30 pounds overweight, they're just new to triathlons, they get on, they get a comfortable fit. At what point do you look at them and say, okay, I think it's time for another fitting? They lost 20 pounds or they're trying to get faster, or what are those trigger points that you would recommend people should start? I understand the first fit, right? That makes sense, right? Over time, when do you start going, when's a good time for kind of a tune-up fit, if you will?
Well, let me say this about what I think is a logical progression. And Tom, I want you to interrupt me anytime if you disagree. I think if somebody comes into the sport early and they're like, hey, I just want to do a couple of sprints, I'm interested in triathlon, this should be fun. Great. Let's get a road bike and let's get a cheap one.
Yeah.
Let's get a decent road bike built with like 105 and, let's not spend too much money on it. Let's get it comfortable and then go and race your season. Okay. Yeah. Next season rolls around, the person's totally stoked. And they say, look, I want to do all the races I did last year. I want to go faster. And then I want to do some other things that are longer. I can't spend a ton of money. What's the next step? Well, let's do something that I'm not a fan of, but I'm willing to do for you to bridge the gap. We're going to put a set of clip-on aero bars on that road bike, and maybe we'll change the seat post to bring you forward just a hair, and we'll falsify the triathlon position on that road bike so that you can be faster and go longer and be more efficient. Okay, cool. Season 2 ends and the person's really fired up and they're like, look, I've signed up for the biggie next year. I'm going all in. What can we do? And now it's time to do a pre-fit for a triathlon bike. And early in this conversation, I said, look, you should get a pre-fit done if you're going to buy a road bike. You should, you should. If you're going to buy a tri bike, you must get a pre-fit done. You must. Okay. So let's do a pre-fit for the tri bike. Then let's get that tri bike and finalize it, make it perfect. Then let's take all of that weird garbage off the road bike. And now you have 2 bikes. You have a road bike and you have a tri bike, and that's the perfect place to be. And now your coach can go to work and say, hey, listen, I want you to do the group ride on Thursday on the road bike and stay in the pack and really go for it. And then I want you to do a recovery ride on Monday on the road bike, stay flat, spin easy. And then Saturday's long ride is on the tri bike. And I want you to be in aero and we're going to gear too big. So we're going to ride a tension set, for 10 minutes, and we're going to do 4 of those with recovery. And so now your training program becomes more precise because you have 2 different pieces of equipment, each one with their sort of appropriate moment.
Yeah.
And so that's a really logical way to go about that. And it's the best way to proceed through the whole thing.
Okay. And then as they kind of change over time, if that person started off,
I'm so sorry. You're right. Yeah. I forgot that part.
That's fine.
If you get somebody who comes in who's unfit, and by that, I'm going to just get right down to it. If they have a beer belly, that is going to limit how low we can put the aero bars.
Exactly.
Because at the top of the pedal circle, their thigh is going to be smashing into their stomach.
Yep.
So if somebody, goes out and races a season or 4 or 5 months and they're like, listen, I lost a ton of weight and I'd like to recheck my fit. Absolutely. Come back in. Let's figure that out. I think there's a lot of fitness aspects that can cause reason for a refit. But since we're on the subject, I want to put a couple of things out there. When you're fitting a triathlon bike in the triathlon position, the most important piece of equipment on the bike is the saddle. If the person doesn't have a saddle where they can ride sort of the front half of it comfortably, then the fit cannot ever come good. And so you need to go through, and then the question from athletes is always, well, what's a good saddle? Well, the good saddle is the one that feels good under you. So we have to put a bunch of saddles under you until you find, I can't tell you what the good saddle is. Sure, Adamo makes a great saddle. John Cobb makes a great saddle. Speed and Comfort makes a great saddle. All these people make great saddles, but we have to find the one that feels good under you. And unless you're sitting in the proper spot on that saddle, the rest of the fit will not even happen. So that's a critical part. Another thing is there's been a lot of discussion in the past, say 7 to 10 years, about short cranks. And I'm not going to have that discussion around mountain, gravel, cyclocross road, et cetera. But if you're racing triathlon or time trial, short cranks are mandatory. And it's the same reason for the fitness question, which is this: if your handlebars are going lower, 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 and you're still comfortable, because remember, that's the priority. You can still make power because, that's incredible. And you're getting out of the wind, maybe going lower. Cool. As you go lower, it doesn't matter if you've got a flat 6-pack washboard ab stomach. If you've got 175 millimeter cranks, you're going to get a hip impingement and you're going to have flesh coming together from your stomach and your top of your thigh at the top of that pedal stroke. So if we can drop that down to 160 millimeter cranks or 165s, or if you're tiny, 155s or whatever, what's going to happen is the foot is going to come around the top of the pedal circle without any of that flesh in the hip flexor area getting sticky, coming together, binding up. and you're just going to flow right over the top and start into the power phase, and you're going to be faster. You're going to create more power. You're going to have less crampiness in your hip. It's going to be great.
Hey, Tom, after this, we're going to have a chat, because that's exactly what's happening right now. Right. That is exactly what's happening when I'm coming over right now. It's I got a little hitch in my wagon.
Yep.
This is the layman's turn. I got a little hitch in my wagon.
You know what's funny, Kenny, is people always talk about, for the layman, bike fit is all about seat height. And if the seat's too high, they see their hips rocking, right? Oh, I see your hip rocking. Yeah. Your seat might be too high. Well, in triathlon, if your cranks are too long, your hip's probably going to rock, because as the foot comes up to the top of the pedal circle, most of the time, if you think about seat height, you're worried about the bottom of the pedal circle.
Exactly.
But at the top of the pedal circle, it's pushing the hip up, which is causing it to rock. So now you've got a hip rock, but you've got it for a totally different reason, at the exact antithesis point of the pedal circle.
Yep.
So I always have to ask coaches these questions. And I always, same thing with physical therapists too, is like when you're out on a casual run or you're out on a casual bike ride and you see someone that's just absolutely goofy, right? It looks like, I can't believe they're running. Like, there's 6 things in your head that you can say. How do you control yourself not going, hey, because I used to race with my PT. I used to race on his bike team, and I hate it when he was behind me, because I know exactly what he's doing. He's looking at my stroke, he's looking at my knees and everything else. He's like, well, he's going to come see me, because do you guys you just have to swallow all of that, or how do you do that?
Tom, how do you do that?
I kind of swallow all of it unless they're talking about doing an epic race or something. Like if I see somebody out on a ride and their hips are rocking all over the place, and they're obviously not even in there, and they're saying, I'm only 5 or 6 months away from Ironman X, whatever it is, then I might just say, have you looked at your bike fit recently? And just kind of drop a hint that way. Yeah. But in swimming, I encourage my athletes to watch other swimmers.
Yeah.
And not to say anything, but to actually watch, because as they see it, then it helps them with their stroke as well. Similar thing on the bike is pointing out people's bike fits, or just having people look at their angles and look at where they're at. There's so much that goes into it when we start talking about, past injuries.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff. There's so much to dial in and go back there. And we all know Paul Swift, like, we got to start at your feet, right? We got to work our way up and kind of go through this. So there's so much to unpack on it. Mm-hmm. But I tend to just smile and ride on.
I very rarely discuss things with runners I see out in the world. I see them all, by the way, because I think when you're trained in movement analysis, and coaches are, you cannot help but see it. I rarely get into it with them. And what's very funny is here on the west side of Los Angeles in Santa Monica, we have a stretch of road called San Vicente that has a bike lane and then a grassy median with some gorgeous coral trees. And everybody trains on that and has been for years. And in my little circle, and I'm sure in other circles too, we have names for folks, backseat woman and head down, gotta go guy, and all the people that we see there just every day. And there's a lot of odd movement going on.
Yeah.
And but what I do frequently, and I've had tremendous success with it in terms of resolution in business, is I ride with a Silka cycling wallet, and in my jersey pocket, and inside of that is some business cards.
There you go.
And what'll often happen is I'll be riding on PCH through Malibu, and I'll pass someone or they'll pass me. But typically they'll pass me because I have a tendency to do a lot of long, easy mileage. And I'll just look at their fit. And if it's terrible, I'll ride up to them and say, hey, listen, you're obviously really strong. What are you training for? Blah, blah, blah. We'll talk about it. And I'll say, look, I'm a bike fitter. That's what I do for a living. And I'll pull out a business card and slide it into their pocket. And I'll say, I'll just put my business card in your pocket. If you'd like to have me look at your fit, please give me a call and let's discuss it. And I would say 1 out of every 5 times, which for that, what is essentially the coldest of cold calls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed with that turnaround. Like,
that's pretty good.
Contact me and say, hey, listen, you put your business card in my pocket 2 weeks ago, and I'd like to come in for a fit. And I'm like, fabulous. Let's do that.
That's great.
So I think if you approach that now, I would never do it if people were in a group, because of course the way humans are going to respond, like they're going to defend themselves.
Yeah.
It'll only happen if they're alone
Mm-hmm.
and if it's egregious.
Yeah.
If somebody's in a mediocre position, I probably won't get into it.
Yeah, I just kind of can tell, like when you guys are bike fitters or anybody that works on mechanic or movement, and when you see it, I just don't.
It's kind of like
not
training.
scream in your head, right?
It's just training. It's like the more you see, the more you can analyze, the better you'll be when you get the opportunity to work.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's all good. So,
Ian, what do you got coming up? What do you got going
next?
Let's see. In terms of coaching biz, we've got the race season starting out here. You know, we have the LA Triathlon Series is the longest running triathlon series in the world. I think we're coming up on 43 years or something. That thing's been going on. It's at a little lake in the east end of the county. And I'm gonna drive the LA Tri Club van there on April 10th. This is the first one of those at 4 a.m, you know, and park it in the prime spot and set up our 10x10. And I'm going to support all the LA Tri Clubbers that are racing that race. And I have a bunch of people in the performance program at LA Tri Club that are going on to bigger races. And we're using that as sort of let's scrape the rust off from the winter. Let's tune up our transitions. Let's get our swim start going. It's an inexpensive race where we can sleep at home, go and race and come back before noon. It's just a great aspect for us here in SoCal. You know, we're lucky to have a lot of close races. And then we have the Herbalife 24 Triathlon of Los Angeles that's happening on May 15th. And that's going to be a big, big turnout for us again this year. That race has been going strong for some time, so we're happy about that. For me as an athlete, this bikepacking thing has really taken hold, and I've been eyeing the Tour Divide for some time. This is a bike race that is self-supported. It's mostly on dirt. It starts in Banff, Alberta, Canada, and it goes 2,700 miles through the Rocky Mountains to the Mexican border.
Wow.
The record on this thing is like 14 days. So
wow.
It's so funny, you know, when we read times for age group Ironman, you know, it'll be like 13:22. And you look at it and it goes, okay, this person went 13 hours, 22 minutes. I get it. In this Tour Divide thing, I have to shift gears because that 13 doesn't relate to hours. It relates to days. And, it's sort of a wake up call. So I don't know if at this time in my life, here's the thing. I am so fortunate in two aspects of my life that I don't think I can do the Tour Divide. I'm married to a woman named Alexandra Paul, who's just an absolute catch. We've been together for 25 years and it feels like 25 days. I mean, it's so exciting and fun. And I don't like being away from her. That's a beautiful thing to be able to say. And I'm so pleased I can say that. And then the other thing is my business is going well. And that's another great thing to say. And I don't know if I can walk away from everything and put my phone on airplane mode for 3 weeks. I just don't, I'm having a tough time imagining doing that. So to that end, I'm not sure the divide is going to happen like I wanted to this year, but I cannot stop thinking about it. And that's causing a concern. So there's
it's going to happen. Yeah, that's just going to happen.
But I can tell you this, I have raced the Malibu Triathlon, I think 26 or 7 years in a row. I haven't missed one. In fact, every year that they've doubled up, like one year they added a half Ironman on a Saturday to the Classic on Sunday. I did them both back to back. And then when they added the Olympic, I did them both back to back. And I want to keep that streak alive. I even had my hip replaced 14 months ago, and I did Malibu without being able to run just because I wanted to keep the streak alive. So I think I ran like 300 meters and then walked 100 meters and kept that going for a while. And so I very much love that race. It's in my backyard. I'm going to definitely do that event too. We have, you know, maybe 180 LA Tri Club members.
Oh yeah, that's a huge.
Yeah. So I've got a season full of coach work. Gravel riding is a very important thing to me now. So I train mostly on gravel. I feel like I've bought all the years of luck I can get of riding on the road. And now it's time for me to spend a little bit more time on dirt.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about our season ahead. I think I got a lot of fun things coming up, both as a coach and an athlete.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. And LA Tri Club is doing well.
I have to tell you, Paul Hakimian has now taken sole ownership of the club.
Has he? Okay.
And he has two people that he's working with, Kimberly Dykeman and myself. And we're both, I think the three of us are more enthusiastic about the club than we've been in years.
Sweet. We
had a call yesterday. And while this club, by the way, you know, we were talking about how hot things were in the early 2000s. We were at 3,000 members at one point in time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
And now we're at 600 and it's growing like a weed again.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled with that. This new membership is going great. We had 2 new people sign up for the performance program in the last 4 days. So I'm doing consults with them today and tomorrow. And things are they're too good. We've added a master swim program to the LA Triathlon membership. We're providing more services than ever. It's going too well. We're too excited about it. So it's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
great.
It's and coming out of the pandemic, I think this is all good signs of things pointing upwards.
Yep.
So that's fantastic. So cool. Well, Ian, thank you so much for being on. It was great to have you on.
I appreciate you having me, Kenny. Such a pleasure to meet you.
It
was a pleasure to meet you as well.
We might have to ask you to come back on again.
Anytime.
Especially if you do the Bear Divide, that would be great. And,
only if you do the Bear Divide.
I would love to come and chat with you. If it's about bike packing, if it's about the Tour Divide, if it's about any of that stuff, or just, more specificity into something like Bike Fit or like swim, I'm game. I'm game.
I think
cool.
we'll dive into some stuff like that. And it would be great to have you back on. So, thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate all your comments and all of that. Keep coming. Give us 5 stars, 5 thumbs up, whatever it takes. If you don't feel it's worth it, hey, let us know why. We're always trying to improve and get better on this thing, but the more responses we get, the better the algorithm is, and more people can find this podcast. So we're having a lot of fun with it. So thanks again, Kenny, Ian, fantastic, and we'll catch you all on the flip side. Thanks.